The latest Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 236 spoilers reveal Gojo's death and Sukuna as the winner. Almost everything I mentioned about the Gojo vs Sukuna fight has turned out to be true. Nearly 90% of my chapter predictions were accurate. And now I have discovered a clue suggesting that Gojo might always reincarnate as the user of the six eyes. I would like to mention another very quick point before we move on to the chapter. While events took place as I had expected, the ultimate outcome, especially the reason behind Gojo's death, hasn't fully happened yet. Both Sukuna and Kenjaku could, in theory, find a method to obtain the six eyes, now that Gojo's dead. By doing so, they could harness the most potent power in existence for the final main villain as it is supposed to be. The villain must be the strongest, and it's most likely not Sukuna. Let's talk about it. The new Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 236 begins with what initially appears to be a flashback. However, we soon discover that it's actually a vision taking place entirely in Gojo's mind. A hallucination his brain produces to deal with his impending death. It's almost as if Gojo is awakening in the afterlife, not literally in heaven, but in a personal space where he reunites with his deceased friends for one final conversation. And yes, there's a strong possibility that this might mark the conclusion of the fight. It doesn't seem like the usual bait and switch that we have come to expect from Jujutsu Kaisen, especially Sukuna vs Gojo. I've consistently mentioned how these bait and switch tactics are structured. They always occur at the end of the chapters, hinting at the potential death of a character only to be clarified in the following chapter. That's when the twist usually unfolds, revealing that the character is still alive, and then the cycle begins anew. I've also pointed out that if a death is genuinely going to occur, it will take place at the chapter's conclusion, leaving no room for speculation. So no, I don't believe the fight is over just because Gojo had half of his body chopped off. If this exact scene with Gojo's body being damaged had taken place at the end of the chapter without any additional context, I would have advised you not to trust it. However, since the portrayal of his death began at the start and continued all the way to the end, it's definitely distinct structure-wise from other fake deaths we have seen. Of course, there's always a chance that something might happen to bring Gojo back, or perhaps he prepared the technique a few chapters ago that will impact future battles. There are many potential outcomes, but as I mentioned, this time it appears less likely that the story will proceed with Gojo still in play. The scene begins with Geto's relaxed greeting, which reflects Gojo's memories and views of their past bond. When Gojo says this is awful, he internally recognizes the seriousness of the situation he's facing. The remark, dying should be done alone, mirrors Gojo's belief and might be his method of mentally stealing himself. When Gojo says who cares, it can be interpreted as a part of Gojo's mind, aiming to console him. Keep in mind, Geto isn't really there. It's just Gojo talking to Gojo. Following this, Geto asked about the King of Curses. Gojo responds that Sukuna was incredibly powerful and he didn't fully commit to the fight. This is because he couldn't utilize his full strength. This aligns with what I have been telling you from the start. Sukuna is much more formidable than what we have witnessed up to now. He didn't go all out against Yorozu, for example, and couldn't do so against Gojo due to the power of infinity. Many people have issues with this strategy. They argue that if Sukuna had to follow such a complex plan, gaining a new ability, then understand the power more deeply than Gojo, who spent more time with Megumi, and then intentionally allowing himself to be hit so that Maharaga could adapt, while making it seem as if Maharaga had adapted in a particular manner, leading everyone to believe that the adaptation was set and unchanging. All this must mean he's a fraud, or it's somehow unjust. Let's ignore one of the smartest moves in manga history, okay? And we shouldn't overlook the fact that not only did Sukuna defeat Gojo, but he also prevented Gojo from defeating Sukuna. Nobody stopped Gojo from defeating Sukuna. Why didn't he? Because he couldn't. Now don't tell me you believe Megumi could defeat Gojo using Maharaga. Please, get out. And there's more to it than just that. Gojo goes on to say that he's uncertain if he could have won even if Sukuna didn't possess Megumi's curse technique. Let that sink in. Anyway, Gojo's mention of the loneliness at the top and his belief that Geto should understand it is quite moving. Both were extremely powerful sorcerers. Gojo's remark about feeling more like a living thing than a human highlights the alienation he felt because of his vast power. The reference to flowers drives home this point, where flowers are admired for their beauty. They lack desires or feelings, just like Gojo. Though many admired Gojo for his strength, he deeply wished for true understanding. This is why out of all the people he knew, Geto remained his only true friend. the only one who came anywhere near his level of power, of course except for Sukuna. Gojo's introspection on going all out against Sukuna demonstrates his commitment. He gave his all, every technique, every instinct, and every surge of power in his battle against Sukuna. Then there's a quote hinting at Yorozu, the absolute strongest, and that someday someone will teach him about love. Sadly, Gojo admits he isn't that person. There's the wish from Gojo to translate his feelings and experience to Sukuna, hoping for the same empathy in return. Gradually, more of Gojo's departed friends join the conversation. Heibara recalls a conversation he had some time ago. They discussed how it wasn't good for Gojo to be alone, mainly because Gojo didn't view Jujutsu as something worth living for or protecting. This reflects Gojo's internal feelings of isolation and possibly his own conflict about the purpose and significance of his life and abilities. He didn't even see the value in Jujutsu, a point which I had previously predicted and provided many examples for. Nanami describing Gojo as an abnormality and as someone who acted mainly for his own satisfaction is a glimpse into Gojo's inner struggle and how others might see him, or perhaps his acceptance of the truth. It will be particularly intriguing when the reasons for actions such as why he killed all the elders are revealed. There seems to be a lasting impact that Gojo has created which will likely play a significant role in the story's conclusion. The main point here is Gojo's acknowledgement that he acted mainly to fulfill his own desires, thus it's uncertain if his actions ultimately served a greater purpose. Heibara comments that everyone noticed this aspect of Gojo but never voiced it. This emphasizes that Gojo wasn't always the confident figure he portrayed. Keep in mind, this is all happening in Gojo's head. Heibara isn't real. Gojo's thinking this about himself. He was deeply concerned about how others perceived him, which contributed to his feeling of isolation. As the creator of Jujutsu Kaisen themselves mentioned, Gojo doesn't really have a distinct personality, which is why they don't like him. This isn't due to poor character development, but rather illustrates that Gojo might possess traits of a sociopath, or some other condition that causes him to constantly mask his true feelings, always projecting an image of happiness and confidence. In truth, he was very much alone. Even in this final vision, he asked to be alone and so on, yet in this chapter, he seems more genuine and human than we have ever seen him before. When Gojo asks about Nanami's whereabouts, Nanami responds that Mei once gave him a suggestion on where to go next. This conversation likely refers to the afterlife. Any other interpretation doesn't seem to fit. Using the word move in this context might hint at the idea of human soul reincarnating after death. So perhaps Gojo continually reincarnates as the use of the six eyes. After all, several hundred years must pass before a new use of the six eyes emerges, and two of them cannot exist at the same time. This theory could shed light on the cryptic remark Geto once made. Are you the strongest because you're Gojo, or are you Gojo because you're the strongest? Given this perspective, the statement suggests that Gojo's strength is inherent to his identity, implying that he is the strongest due to his essence, his soul and existence as the six eyes user itself. The concept of reincarnation might also clarify why Kenjaku can take over Six Eyes user's body, because that individual never truly dies. This idea also aligns with the observed pattern. The Six Eyes have always been linked by destiny to Master Tengen and the Star Plasma Vessel. Even though Kenjaku tried to eliminate new Six Eyes users and the Star Plasma Vessel both, the Six Eyes and the Vessel re-emerged on the merger day. In that context, Mei's options are move north if you want to discover a new side of yourself, or move south if you want to remain as you are. These options could hint at the concept of reincarnation. Alternatively, they might hold a symbolic meaning, representing Gojo's introspection on whether he's truly content with his life. Gojo then says his goodbyes to everyone, and then we see him lying lifeless on the ground, resting in peace. Then we see Sukuna explaining Maharaga's adaptation. I understand that many have difficulty grasping this concept, so let me clarify it for you. As we are aware, Maharaga possesses a unique ability to adapt to attacks. When it faces an attack for the first time, it doesn't counter it right away. Instead, it starts analyzing the attack. This analysis is based on time. The more time passes, the better Maharaga comprehends the attack. If Maharaga faces the same attack multiple times during this analysis, its adaptation adaptation becomes quicker. Many are curious about why Sukuna didn't use this attack sooner. There could be several reasons, but the most significant one is as follows. Unlike other beings that might have a limit to their adaptation, Maharaga's adaptation to a technique is continuous. Once it begins analyzing a technique, it doesn't merely stop after finding a counter. It keeps evolving, refining its reaction further, faster and faster. It's not determined by the number of hits it takes. Its adaptation keeps increasing, and with every hit, it adapts faster. With each passing moment it improved until Sukuna figured out how to defeat Gojo. The second adaptation was the turning point. Instead of simply negating the infinity, Maharaga increased the scope of its technique rather than focusing on Gojo alone. It widened its aim to include everything: space, existence, and the world. By targeting space, Maharaga effectively bypassed the need to confront the infinity head-on. Powerful as the infinity might be, it still functions within the bounds of space. By aiming at and cutting through space itself, Maharaga made sure that anything within that space, including Gojo and his infinity, will be affected. To truly grasp this, we must first understand the concept of infinity. Although it's termed infinity, it doesn't imply that Gojo controls an infinite amount of space or creates an infinite amount of space. Instead, the idea is that when something tries to get close to Gojo, the space between that object or person and Gojo becomes infinitely small. This makes it impossible for anything to actually reach him. Think of it like trying to reach the number 0 by continuously halving a number. You will keep getting closer, but you will never truly hit 0. So Gojo's infinity isn't about controlling endless space, it's about creating an unbreakable shield, using the idea of infinity. So they simply cut infinity itself, and with it Gojo. In the end, Kashimo shows up for the next round. I won't go over my detailed predictions about what happens if Gojo dies again. I will link the theories in the comments. The main idea is that Kenjaku never intended to seal Gojo permanently. The prison realm might have changed Gojo's existence, allowing Kenjaku to take over his body once Gojo passes away. And he brought back Sukuna so he can defeat Gojo. This might not have been possible without the prison realm. Alternatively, Sukuna might find a way to take control of Gojo's body or his eyes. If that occurs, Kenjaku could then take control of Sukuna. By doing so, he would not only obtain the 6 eyes, but also the power of the king of all curses. Another theory I've considered is that Gojo gave Itadori the final finger. This will let Itadori consume it, essentially putting Sukuna back inside his body. Then within his mind, Itadori would face Sukuna and form a binding vow. The winner keeps all the powers. During this confrontation, Itadori would harness all the abilities he gained from his siblings, the remaining cursed wombs. Meanwhile, Kenjaku takes over Gojo, and then the new king of all curses, Itadori, will fight the new user of the 6 eyes, Kenjaku. A rematch between Gojo and Sukuna, so to speak. So, what do you think of this new Jujutsu Kaisen chapter and my chapter review and all the theories and so on? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, and if you want to see more Jujutsu Kaisen content and much more, then subscribe to this channel with the notification bell activated for more videos. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.